Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION The World, and this is Speed News. Let's begin. Los Angeles Police Department made nearly 400 arrests and detentions in connection with immigration protests, mostly for failing to leave the area despite law enforcement requests. Protesters face serious charges, including assault against police officers, possession of Molotov cocktail, and gun possession. A demonstration in the Civic Center turned chaotic when police in riot gear charged at protesters on horseback using wooden rods and crowd-control projectiles, including one that injured a woman. And after the curfew took effect for the second day, a few more arrests were made before the area was cleared. Some protesters were detained by National Guard troops, who later handed them over to local law enforcement. Hundreds of people attended a demonstration against immigration raids in San Antonio, Texas. In Texas, the protest was largely peaceful, with many blasting music and voicing their frustrations against current immigration policies and ICE raids. Nearby streets were closed off as law enforcement watched from hundreds of feet away. Dozens of the demonstrators had walked to City Hall from the Alamo after police there closed off the area where a protest was scheduled to take place. The Israeli military has recovered the bodies of 2 hostages from Gaza, including Yaakov, one of the many civilians abducted during the Hamas-led October 7 attack. The discovery comes as Israel continues its military campaign in the Gaza Strip amid growing international scrutiny. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu confirmed the news and said Israeli government will not rest until all the hostages, whether living or deceased, are brought home. Yaakov, who was 59 at the time of his abduction, was taken from his home in Kibbutz Nir Oz on October 7, 2023. Israel's parliament, the Knesset, voted down a proposal to dissolve itself, with 61 lawmakers opposing it and 53 supporting. The motion, which would have paved the way for early elections, was rejected after a last-minute agreement was reached on a contentious military conscription bill. Polls had indicated that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition would likely lose if elections were held. The Knesset's 120-seat parliament requires a 61-vote majority to pass significant legislation, and the opposition fell just short of meeting this threshold. The third day of anti-immigrant violence in Ballymena, Northern Ireland, saw hundreds gather on the streets facing police armed with riot shields and water cannons. Although the crowds eventually dispersed without repeating the chaotic scenes from the previous 2 nights. The situation remains volatile. The protests erupted in the northern town after the arrest of 2 teenagers accused of attempting to rape a young girl. The pair appeared Monday in court, where they asked for a Romanian interpreter. Police have not confirmed the ethnicity of the teenagers, who remain in custody, but areas attacked included neighborhoods where Romanian migrants live. Colombian President Gustavo Petro has signed a decree summoning voters to the polls in August to decide on changes to the country's labor laws by passing legislative opposition. The move comes after the Senate rejected Petro's labor reform proposal twice. The referendum will ask voters 12 questions, including whether workdays should be limited to 8 hours. The decree was issued amid a tense political climate following the shooting of opposition senator and presidential candidate Miguel Uribe during a public event. In anticipation of court challenges, Petro said his government will send the decree to Colombia's constitutional court for review. Bolivia State Attorney General Roger Mariaca Montenegro said that the Public Prosecutor's Office is investigating to find the perpetrators behind the recent episodes of violence in La Lagua and other areas of the country where dozens of people have been injured and at least 3 were killed. Authorities reported the killings of 2 police officers and a firefighter in the region in Potosi on Wednesday, where confrontations took place between officers and followers of former President of Bolivia, Evo Morales, who were blocking a highway. Now, later that day in Cochabamba, Vinto, supporters of Morales clashed with security forces as protesters reinstated a blockade on a bridge. Demonstrators in the area reportedly forced police to retreat using firecrackers and stones, while an officer responded with tear gas. Argentine President Javier Milei announced that the country will relocate its embassy in Israel from Herzliya, near the coastal city of Tel Aviv, to Jerusalem in 2026. He made this announcement in a speech in the Israeli parliament during an official state visit. This decision marks a significant shift in Argentina's foreign policy, aligning itself with countries like the United States, Paraguay, Guatemala, and Kosovo, which have also moved their embassies to Jerusalem. A massive fire engulfed a motorcycle parking facility in China's Chongqing, sending thick black smoke billowing into the air. According to local fire services, no casualties were reported. Firefighters had arrived within 3 minutes and extinguished the flames. Bystanders were seen covering their mouths to protect themselves from the smoke and fleeing the area. Preliminary investigation suggests the fire might have been caused by a spontaneous motorcycle ignition, but the exact cause is still under investigation. The European Union and Britain have reached an agreement to ease cross-border trade and travel in Gibraltar after years of post-Brexit wrangling over the contested territory. Historically, Gibraltar has been an important military base for Britain due to its position at the mouth of the Mediterranean Sea. When Britain left the EU in 2020, the relationship between Gibraltar and the bloc remained unresolved. Japanese Princess Kako of Akishino, niece of Japanese Emperor Naruhito, visited the Brazilian Congress as part of her official trip to celebrate 130 years of diplomatic relations between Japan and Brazil. During the visit, the princess attended a commemorative ceremony alongside Brazilian lawmakers, diplomats, and members of the Japanese community in Brazil. In an address to the Brazilian Congress, Princess Kako thanked Brazilians for hosting Japanese immigrants for more than a century. The princess also had a private ceremony with Brazilian President Lula da Silva, discussing ways to strengthen cooperation between Japan and Brazil. Tens of thousands of South Koreans poured into the Blue House in northern Seoul as it could be their last chance to visit the premise as a new president is poised to return to the former presidential office. Devastating floods hit South Africa's Eastern Cape province, one of the country's poorest regions, resulting in at least 49 confirmed deaths. The floods were triggered by a strong weather front that brought heavy rains, gale-force winds, and snow to some areas. The death toll included 6 high school students who were washed away when their school bus was caught in floodwaters near a river close to the town of Tata, which was especially hard hit and at the center of the worst flooding. Kilauea volcano in Hawaii put on a spectacular show on Wednesday, with lava fountaining reaching heights of approximately 330 feet into the air. This recent eruption marks the 25th episode since the volcano's ongoing eruption began on December 23, 2024. According to the USGS, most eruptions last for around a day or less. The dollar slid today on further signs that U.S. President Donald Trump may adopt a softer stance in tariff negotiations, heightened expectations of Federal Reserve rate cuts. Trump said on Wednesday he would be willing to extend a July 8th deadline for completing trade talks with countries before higher U.S. tariffs are imposed. The remarks renewed dollar weakness, lifting the euro to a 7-week high against a basket of currencies. The dollar fell to its weakest since April 22nd. Sterling was up 0.38%. The Australian dollar ticked up 0.05% in early trade. Oil prices edged higher to their highest in more than 2 months after U.S. President Donald Trump said U.S. personnel were being moved out of West Asia, which raised fear that escalating tensions with Iran could disrupt supply. Brent crude futures rose 0.2% to $69.92 a barrel at 12:30 a.m. GMT, while U.S. oil ticked up 0.3% to $68.37. Both Brent and WTI surged more than 4% in the previous session. Optimism around a trade deal between the U.S. and China, which could boost energy demand in the world's 2 biggest economies, also buoyed oil prices. India's listed companies have added nearly $1 trillion in market capitalization since early March 2025, taking the total over $5 trillion. This sharp increase comes on the back of a strong rally that followed a 5-month correction between October 2024 and February 2025. In percentage terms, India's market capitalization surged by over 21%, the highest growth among the world's top 10 equity markets. India now ranks as the fifth largest equity market globally, trailing only the US, China, Japan, and Hong Kong. Germany recorded the second largest gain during this period, with its MCAP rising nearly 14%. Canada followed with an 11% jump, while Hong Kong's MCAP increased by more than 9%. Japan and the UK also saw gains of around 8% each. Airbus revised up its forecast for airplane demand over the next 20 years, telling investors and suppliers the air transport industry was expected to ride out the current wave of trade tensions. The European plane maker said it expected the industry and its U.S. rival Boeing to dominate to deliver commercial jets between 2025 and 2044. The aerospace industry has been rolled by U.S. tariffs introduced by Trump and the prospect of reprisals by the European Union. It also said demand for long-haul jets has seen growing led by Gulf carriers.